Hello and welcome. This is Holly. And before we dive into today's episode, Brittany and I want to give a content warning. So, in this conversation, we are going to be discussing topics related to sexual assault and sexual abuse, which are incredibly sensitive topics. So, we just want to make sure you know that ahead of time. So, please take care of yourself and listen at your own pace. If it doesn't feel right to listen, trust yourself, skip this episode, do what is best for you. Also, Brittany and I recorded this episode a couple months ago when I was in Vancouver, but just with everything going on in the world right now, I feel called to really just speak about it for a moment. So, if you are feeling scared right now, if you're feeling helpless, lost, feeling a lot of uncertainty, fear, worry, anxiety, whatever it may be, we just want you to know that we see you and that you are not alone. And we want to make it so incredibly clear that this is a space for everyone, for women and men, for the LGBTQIA plus community, for immigrants and refugees, for lower income families, for people with convictions, survivors of abuse, all races, all backgrounds, whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever you've been through, whatever you've done, whatever you believe in, you belong here. This moment in time feels like a call to action, a call to get involved in our local communities and to have the courage to use our voices and to stand for what we believe in. I really don't feel that this is a time to be complacent or to spiritually bypass. It's a time to really rise and to act and to hold on to our truths and to create that positive change forward where we can create more balance in the world, where we really care about one another with less judgment, with more compassion, more love, more understanding, more acceptance. So, our prayer is that we can find the courage to speak out, to feel the weight of this moment, and above all, to remember we are not here to fight one another. We do not need to be causing more division and divide within each other. We are here to fight the systems that prioritize profit over people and systems rooted in power and greed. So, our hope is that we can rise together to really take action in ways that feel aligned for you, whether that's through volunteering, organizing, donating, simply spreading awareness, using your voice, because now more than ever, we need to come together in unity and really heal in community and care for one another and stand up for one another. So, we are so deeply committed to using our voices to fight for the truth, to fight for what we believe in, to fight for compassion and for love. And, we may misspeak, we may stumble because I'm really new at using my voice and I'm getting used to it. But I know that I cannot stay silent during this time. And I know Brittany feels like we are not here to stay silent in this time. We are here to really have the courage to use our voices. And we really hope by us using our voices, it will give you the same courage to use yours, even if you shake, even if you misspeak, show up and fight for what you believe in and educate yourself and do what it is that you need to do. And we live in a world with so much information and a lot of misinformation on the internet. And again, with us using our voices and putting ourselves out there, like we are going to do our best, but also be mindful that we are also human, So we encourage you to always do your own research, to trust your intuition. And if we get something wrong, or if one of our guests relays misinformation that you catch, like please email us. We are open to all feedback and we are so deeply committed to learning and growing together. And we're human. We're going to mess up. We're going to misspeak. But may we offer each other grace and compassion and understanding. And just may we come together in unity and healing community. That is my prayer. That is my hope. And I really hope we all have the courage to use our voices and get out there and come together and really fight for one another, not fight each other, but fight for one another, fight for systems that really prioritize people over profit. So I just wanted to preface that too, because there's a lot going on in the world right now. So if you're feeling any fear, I see you and you are so loved and we are all in this together. So with that, we will dive into the episode.
Who, having sex with their partners, they're so embarrassed. They're like, they want to keep the lights off or they want to make sure the sheets are cut. Like there's just so much shame.
Right.
Being tied to like physical appearance as well. Like regardless of who you are, what you look like, You deserve to feel pleasure.
Welcome to the Multiple Truths podcast. We're your hosts, Holly
And Brittany. This is a space where we can come together healing in community, where we share our self-love journeys, insights, and wisdom.
a space with no hierarchy or judgment, fostering love, compassion, and respect, and where we honor our differences. With open minds and hearts, everyone's truth is welcome here. We are in this together. Let's dive into the episode. Hello and welcome back. You are here with Holly and Brittany today. Yes, we are together. We're excited for this episode. We just got done taking some photos. If you guys follow us on Instagram, we post a lot of reels, and I like so many. So I'm like, I feel like we need some new photos.
Variety.
Yeah, it's so nice in Vancouver. It's just fall. All of the leaves are changing.
Crisp air. Yeah, it is really beautiful. And honestly, it's overcast today, which turned out perfect for the photos with the blue, the green, the reds, the yellows.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yes, we're doing it for, the Instagram and all of that stuff, but I just like having photos with you too.
Yeah, me too. And it's just so beautiful. Like British Columbia, like I live in San Francisco, but I'm from Ohio. And it's just so beautiful here, like with the mountains. And then in this time of year specifically, it's so green and lush. Like we went to the forest and there's like moss and just so vibrant. I'm like blown away with how beautiful it is here.
Aww.
It's just so beautiful. Like,
they do call it beautiful British Columbia for a reason. I am grateful. Like growing up here, I didn't appreciate it, as you don't.
I feel like
when
you
you're
just
a kid.
don't
But now I do. Like after going, and I love like San Francisco's beautiful too.
Yeah, it really is.
I love like the coast and like the beach and that sort of a thing as well. But coming back here after doing all my traveling, I think I mentioned to you, I'm like really appreciating this land in a way I never have before. I'm like, whoa, like, and I have chills as I'm like really feeling into that. Like it feels sacred. This land really feels sacred. I mean, all land really is. But it is really beautiful. So I am really grateful. And we got some really cute photos.
Yes, you guys will be seeing them if you follow us. But yeah, we just had some lunch. We're getting back. We had some lattes. We're feeling good.
We went to like a little cute hole in the wall sort of a restaurant.
Yeah.
Which are my favorite types of restaurants.
Yeah.
Local. Support your locals. Support your local farmers. Yeah. This is like so random, but like there was like a little quote in the bathroom. It was talking about farmers. I don't know why I want to bring it up right now, but I'm not going to get it word for word, but it said something like every farm is as unique as its farmer because the farmer expresses, it's like a work of art, the way they set up their farm. And I just read that quote and I just had full body chills. And I was like, wow, that's so beautiful because it is art to like take care of land, to harvest, to take care of the animals and to, I just feel like farmers aren't appreciated the way they should be.
Yeah, and it's just so intentional and and we need the farmers.
Yeah, it's a way of life. It said something like, we really do. Just, no more factories, more farmers,
I know. I feel like I really want to learn. I want to have my own garden. When I have my own home, I want to have a garden. I know my mom just bought a little plot of land and she's going to be creating her own garden, and she has grandbabies, my nieces and nephew, and like teaching them how to garden and grow their own food. It feels like that's also kind of like the direction we need to be moving in with food.
Yeah. Well, do you know what my dad, so like I got this like channeled message about my dad. We're all powerful souls, but I got this message of my dad being this powerful soul, this leader, and he's been so connected to the land just naturally. Like that's his way of connection, whether he realizes it or not. He has this beautiful garden in, my parents have all this fresh vegetables every year because my dad gardens, he fishes, he's really good at that stuff and he loves it. And I'm like, that's his soul there.
I know. Yes. And same with my mom. She's always been like outside wanting that, and I think it's like their soul's remembering what it's supposed to be. Because I think our food is so processed now more than ever, and there's so many pesticides in our fruits and vegetables, and the cost of food is going up, and it's like, okay, let's have this be the new way of people buying their own plots of land and growing their own food, teaching the children how to grow their own food, and like start providing for ourselves instead of leaning on like the government.
Instead of being dependent on the government.
Yeah. It feels like it's like
shift needs to happen.
Yeah, it's like independence, like not an act of rebellion, but it's like, let's take our power back.
Let's chills. Like, we need to take our power back.
Yeah,
because the government has too much power right now.
Yeah.
We were even talking about that yesterday or was it this morning with taxes and like the rich, the poor, how there's such a divide, and
how expensive rent is, and how expensive cost of living, food. It's like it's just, there's a lot that needs to shift. And I think being able to grow your own food is a huge way to just begin providing for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that we went to a local spot and supported the local farmers.
Yeah, and literally where we went.
I want to do that more often.
Absolutely. It's something that like
intentional.
Like be more intentional. And that's why I love like hole in the wall, like support the local. And across the street from where we were, you can see horses like on land. It's just like really beautiful, really cute. And
it was such a cute spot. I love it. And I love the name. We won't disclose it, but
I'm just like secretive of my city. That's why I'm I'm weird like that, but you know, my ego wanting to protect me.
Yes. But anyway, so we're going to dive into today's topic. You'll see by the title of this that you clicked on it, but so we want to have a conversation around sex and just really kind of open the door to talking about sex, because I feel like it's such a taboo topic that I have been feeling the call to really start talking about, specifically like a little bit over a year ago, really understanding there's so much sexual shame. Sex is such a secret. It's become this dirty word, you know, there's so much like pedophilia energy and sex trafficking, and there's so much coming to light right now around sex trafficking, around like all of this is like, I feel like really being talked about, coming to light, and it feels like we really need to shine a light on sex and start talking about sex, normalizing sex, helping people process their sexual shame so we can liberate our bodies and come back into our bodies and be living in pleasure, because sex is supposed to be a really beautiful thing.
It's not supposed to be taboo.
Yeah, it's supposed to be beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's become
secretive,
and because it's uncomfortable to talk about. So I think it was uncomfortable to talk about. I feel like people now are talking about it, and it's beautiful. Like, I actually have so much respect for Alex Cooper, and she's on the Call Me Daddy podcast, or Call Her Daddy. I can't.
Or the Guys We Fucked podcast is a different one, but call me, I don't know, call something daddy. You
guys know who it is. And then, I love the Guys We Fucked podcast with Corinne Fisher and Christina Hutchinson. I've been listening to them for like 7 years. It's called the Anti-Slut Shaming Podcast. They bring people in by it being called the Guys We Fucked podcast, but really helping women liberate themselves, ask questions about sex, normalize talking about sex, normalize talking about pleasure. They have so many write-ins about women that have been raped, molested in abusive relationships, giving advice, helping them get out of abusive, toxic cycles, and just really having these conversations, because we need to shine a light on it and start liberating ourselves. So we're just wanting to like open the door to this topic. We're not going to dive too deep into it today, but we want to start having those conversations.
Like, we will definitely talk more about it with time and all of that. And I know for me, growing up, sex was not a topic that I talked about in the home. I went to a Catholic school. I never got formal sex education. Like, nobody told me what sex was. Nobody has ever had that actual conversation with me, like what it is. I don't know how I figured it out. Innately, I just put two and two together, but nobody told me what it was. It was just, don't have sex, you're going to go to hell, you know, if you have sex. And you know, that's religion. Like, I'm talking about my experience and how I was raised, you know, I'm not blaming anybody in particular or anything like that. I want to make that very clear, but it is something that needs to be talked about, because as a result of that, you know, for me, there's been so much shame, just so much shame around it, and just it's for me, it's been very uncomfortable to talk about.
That's why it's avoided, because it's uncomfortable. And I don't think that like our parents really knew how to navigate that conversation. And I'm sure that their parents didn't even have that conversation with them. It's like, no one's really been taught like how to have this type of conversation, and things have gotten so dark and so many secrets are kept around sex that now we're realizing it, and we need to start having these conversations and moving through that uncomfortability and like having those conversations. But it's going to be uncomfortable.
It'll be so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've talked about this on the podcast before. You know, my experience, my virginity was taken. I was raped when I was 19, and I kept it a secret for 10 years. I thought I was going to keep it a secret for my whole life. Like, genuinely, I thought it was going to be a forever secret. And through healing, I realized what was really big for me was having that conversation with my parents and telling them what happened. It was really fucking hard for me to do that, but as a result of me opening up about it and talking about it has been huge in my liberation, coming back into my body and healing. It was a secret for 10 years and it affected me so much more than I realized. And through the healing, and every time I talk about it, it's like it's like more liberating. Yeah. And I just feel like there's so many secrets, so many women specifically, and men, who keep these like dirty secrets hidden. You know, it's like they there's too much shame. They don't want to admit to it. They don't want to disclose it. And that's harmful for the body.
The biggest thing is like shame dies when it's told in safe spaces. And it feels like the more we talk about these things, the more you realize that you're not alone, because the amount of women, men that have been raped, have been molested, have been touched by someone in their family. And there's just so many secrets surrounding it. And you feel so alone and so icky and gross and like almost a sense of disgust for yourself if you're a victim. And it's like actually allowing yourself to be witnessed and seen and release that in a safe space is so healing. Like I know I've hosted circles with 2 other women around helping women release their sexual shame, and because it's so important. And the amount of freedom and tears that were shed of like each woman coming off and like sharing something that happened to them and just being witnessed by community, you don't even realize how far that goes. Like not carrying that weight, that secret anymore. It's huge.
It's huge.
And something I just want to talk about, it's like, I feel like because multiple women in the group had been touched by a family member, either like, you know, a dad, a brother, a stepbrother, a grandfather, whatever it may be. And then another one that was really talked about was there was women I feel like have so much shame if they get wet when they're raped, but needing to like really understand that is your body quite literally trying to protect you. And I think it's like those 2 examples just are really coming to mind because I feel like there's just so much shame around that.
And just like slut shaming, you know.
Absolutely.
And I feel like with the lack of education, because I know I had a lack of education, and I feel like there is for a lot of people, lack of education. You know, when you're younger, you're hormonal, you want to experiment, and with that can be dangerous with the lack of education that truly is out there. And I know it is getting better, but it shouldn't be this taboo thing, and you know, getting into porn and all of these things. Sex is a sacred act. It is a beautiful thing, you know, going into pleasure. And I know we'll talk about this in a bit. I know you'll touch on it more. Women should really be living in pleasure, where it's like there's this darkness, this heaviness that's really clouding it right now. Just because all of the secrets and the darkness and
and also I want to talk about, like, since it's not really talked about, I think it's like, for me, when I lost my virginity, I did not enjoy it at all. I thought it was going to be this beautiful, whimsical, amazing experience. It wasn't. I didn't enjoy it. I actually felt sick afterwards. I started crying afterwards. I thought I was pregnant. I thought like my family was going to be so upset with me. Obviously, like I did keep it a secret because, you know, I grew up Catholic too. And it's like the conversation is really like you save sex for marriage. And that just, you know, most of the time that's just not realistic, you know? And the first time I had sex, it was just not enjoyable. It was just not enjoyable at all. It was quick. It it was just nothing that I expected it to be. And it's like having those conversations with your children too, of like what it should be and like what it can be, and teaching the
and even just like about your bodies, like talking to kids like about the body, and
also about masturbation.
Yes,
like we need like about the body,
about
like
the body,
learning how to self-pleasure and know your body before letting someone else explore your body.
Yeah, I didn't even know a woman could orgasm until I was in my 20s. With that said, I mean, just being completely honest, I was still doing it without realizing that's what I was doing. And I started doing that when I was really little. Yeah. Like really little. And I have this, I mean, I'll share this because it's kind of funny and I don't mind sharing this. I have this memory. I was like really young, like probably like a couple years old. Just like, this is so funny. I'm just like, I remember I had this little couch that my parents bought me, this like super mini couch, and I was like humping the couch. Yeah. I was like 2 or 3 years old, and my parents were like, "What are you doing, Brittany?" And I felt their energy and I felt the shame. So I kept doing that, but like hidden. Yeah. I kept doing that like behind closed doors, just in my room. It was a way to like release. I remember whenever I was like super anxious, I'd like just do it, and it made me feel better.
Ooh, Christina talks about that.
Yeah, and it made me feel better, but I didn't know it was an orgasm. I had no idea that's what I was doing until I was like in my 20s when I realized women can orgasm. I had no idea.
And that's the conversation we need to be teaching, like talking about orgasms. Yeah. And like pleasure, self-pleasure, and something. Yeah, it's like we need to be talking about these things because also
sorry, no, I'm like envisioning
two-year-old Brittany just rubbing up on a couch getting off.
Like literally, I was like that little though, and I still remember
that is so interesting. And I know, like for me when I was younger too, I remember experimenting like you know, with neighbors, and there's just like so much. I look back at that time and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we were like exploring in that type of way. But I think as we're young, our hormones are going, we're getting curious and like.
And we still like, just because you're young, it doesn't mean you can't orgasm.
Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't even remember my first orgasm. I'm going to be I really don't. And it's because we're kind of jumping all over the place, but because it was never a priority for my partners to pleasure me. Yeah. And that's something that I'm really learning with my husband.
Like 98%.
Yeah. He has been the first one who has always prioritized my pleasure. And
shout out to Eric.
Yes. And I really want to say women in a relationship, or, you know, men in whoever is the feminine in the relationship, if the masculine is not prioritizing your pleasure first, you need to have a serious conversation.
Full body
because
chills.
The man or the masculine in the relationship should always be wanting to pleasure the feminine, the female, the woman first, then he can go. It's the female pleasure, the female orgasm is sacred and needs to be a top priority.
And it takes time. A lot of men just want to do it quick. This for a woman to fully like be engorged, to fully get there. Yeah. At least like half an hour. Yeah. Like minimum.
We don't realize that though. That's not talked about either.
It should take time, like slow, not this like, because it's not physically possible for the flower to like fully open. Yeah. It's not physically possible to do that in a short period of time. Right. Like it takes time.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's something too that like, I think also women, or if you are gay and you're the more feminine in the relationship, it's like really exploring your own body, so you know like your own body and what will open you up and how long it typically takes for you to get to your climax, or what positions help you get to your climax, and like help coach.
And not be afraid to be vocal about it. Yes. Because that's another thing. Yeah. Like I know for me, it's like a lot of people and I know a lot of people, they just, it's like you don't want to be open, honest. I know sex is almost like an act for a lot of people. It's like this it's like a performance. It becomes a performance. And like a lot of women just want the men to feel good. They want to, you know, pleasure the man, and
faking orgasms.
Oh my God. Yes. And it's like, I know.
Absolutely not anymore, ladies.
No, I know. Like, men. No, literally. Like I know, like every single woman I know has faked an orgasm. Absolutely. Like many times.
Absolutely. And I think too, this is kind of where porn comes in.
Yeah.
Because it gets very performative. And also like a lot of men are bringing into the bedroom what they see in porn, and that's not actually how like the feminine wants to be treated.
And these young kids, these young, like I'm getting chills right now, like 13 years old, like young kids are getting exposed to this. And it actually, so like I had, one person that I knew years ago, he told me that because of him watching porn from a very, very young age, he now has like erectile dysfunction, and he it's not normal for him, because to like turn him on, it's like, do you know what I'm saying? His brain is like wired wrong. I'm sure that through rewiring in time, like he can heal that, but it's a serious problem.
Yeah. And there was an article, it was either in the New York Times or somewhere recently, talking about these young boys choking girls. And it's becoming this huge issue because they're not asking permission, because it's what they see in porn. So they think, oh, this is what women like, and just doing it. And it's becoming really dangerous.
Oh, I have chills.
Yeah. Computer. So it's like we need to start having these conversations at such a young age. And even porn is such a secret. I mean, anyone can start looking at porn at any age.
It's so
and it
accessible.
And it really is skewing the perception of making love. And like,
yes, because it's not just sex, it's making love.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's coming to mind. I remember getting this message. So many people put so much emphasis, so much, I can't think of the word, but so much weight on sex in a relationship. Sex is so important. Sex is so important. Sex is a bonus. Sex is a bonus. And I got that from Aya, like one of the ceremonies. She made it very clear. Sex is this sacred energy exchange, and it's beautiful. And when you are able to foster a deep soul connection and bond with a person, sex is going to be better than it's been with anybody else, because you can work on that together. Sex is a bonus.
Yeah.
Take the pressure off. There's so much pressure. There's so much weight on how sex is so important. It is, but it comes after. It's like the cherry on top.
You know what's coming to mind, which obviously this is personal, but I'm just going to share it. So my husband and I right now are having the most connected, passionate, loving sex that we've ever had. And we have known each other for like almost 10 years. And it's because he's connected with himself so deeply. I've connected with myself so deeply. We have connected with each other and shared, we know each other so deeply now. We've been doing a lot of healing work within ourselves, within our relationship. And it's like we are now connected now more than ever. So our sex is more passionate and connected than it's ever been.
That's the thing. It's the connection. It's having that deep soul connection first. And the more you grow that, the better the sex will be. It'll become better and better and better with time.
Yeah.
Because the performance is not there anymore.
Yeah. And it's like, if there's any shame, if there's any secrets within the relationship, you're not going to be able to show up with your partner.
I also love that for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I'm really understanding the power in women's pleasure, and I'm really getting back into my body and getting back into my pleasure, because I was dissociated from my body for so long with my eating disorder. I had so much sex around shame, or shame around sex, and like felt like if I had sex I was going to get pregnant, and just so much around that fear around it, and like really coming back into my body and like experiencing pleasure. It's just been, talk about getting back in your body. It's living in pleasure. Not that you have to be living in pleasure, but at least connected to your pleasure in a healthy way. That is being in your body, because so many of us are dissociated from our bodies. But that's why the healing, releasing of the sexual shame is so needed, because so many are dissociated from their bodies because of painful experiences, because of being molested or raped or emotionally, physically abused in some sort of way.
And that being passed down to, there's this, I forget exactly what it is, but your cell was living in your great grandmother, and it's so literally the shame in her is passed down until it's healed, but it's passed down, like literally physically it's passed down, and it's passed down, and it's passed down, and it will continue to live on until you free it, until you liberate yourself from it.
And think about our grandparents. These conversations weren't even being had.
Oh no. It was not talked about.
And you know what's so interesting, because my journey with this really started. So my first ayahuasca ceremony. So I had this woman who I love so much, Nisha, if you listen, I love you. She took me through a guided meditation. I met her through my embodiment coaching course. And before I went into my first ayahuasca ceremony, she took me through this embodiment practice, and it went into my stomach, my womb space. And I had so much sexual shame in my womb space. It wasn't just mine. It's not just mine. It's like, we're here to liberate our ancestors, our great grandmothers, like all the women that came before us, all the women that will come after us, and reclaim our bodies, reclaim our power, reclaim our pleasure, because our power is found in our pleasure. That is when we are like connected to ourselves in a healthy way.
It's tied to creative energy as well.
Yeah.
Chills.
Yeah. So that was preparation of really diving into my womb space, feeling that sexual shame. And then my first night with ayahuasca, I was actually in pleasure. Like my body was physically in pleasure for like 3 to 4 hours. And I was like, what is going on? But it was ayahuasca showing me pleasure is not shameful. Pleasure is something to be proud of, to be living in. It's like
enjoy.
A beautiful thing to be in pleasure. There is no shame here. It's a beautiful thing to be in pleasure. Let's like enjoy this. Let's allow ourselves to have this. Let's live in this. There's no shame, you know? And like really understanding the importance of women's pleasure and being connected to our bodies, because again, when we are connected to pleasure, we are abundant, we are creative, we are connected to unconditional love, to our hearts and our feminine energy.
And something else that's really coming to mind, this goes into body image and how much pressure especially women put on our appearance and not feeling worthy of feeling that pleasure unless you like look a certain way. You know, it's like feeling ugly, feeling this, or I'm not worthy, or I don't want you to touch me there. I'm embarrassed. Like I know women, I know like personal friends of mine who, you know, having sex with their partners, they're so embarrassed. They're like, they want to keep the lights off, or they want to make sure the sheets are cut. Like there's this, it's just so much shame being tied to like physical appearance as well. Like regardless of who you are, what you look like, you deserve to feel pleasure. It's a beautiful thing. We are meant to feel pleasure and enjoy pleasure. It's not taboo. I feel like there really needs to be a rewiring amongst society. Yeah.
It just feels like we really need to shine a light on all the darkness and all the shame and all the secrets around sex in families. There's so many family secrets surrounding sex and just companies that are exploiting, you know, like the sex trafficking that's going on. It's like, we just need to like start having like open, honest conversations around this to like shine a light, because when we talk about things, the shame starts to lift, because it's a really dense energy right now.
And like, you know, talking like sex is sacred. It's an energy exchange, and I feel like there's lack of education on that specifically too, because it's a huge energy exchange. You will take on the other person's traumas. You will take those on. So it's being very mindful of who you choose to have that exchange with, which is why I don't necessarily believe you should be married to have sex, but it is really important to have that deep bond, that deep connection with a person, really know who you are choosing to exchange your energy with, because it will affect you.
And I don't like, there is something though, I think, where not shaming yourself or other people if you're going out and having sex because you want to and you think it's fun, or you're doing it, you know, you're going, because I definitely experimented in my college years. I didn't, you know, I was going out there and I was hooking up with people and I wasn't mindful about it, and there was big lessons in that and big learning in that, and I've had to really sit in my sexual shame and like really love on myself and see where I was at that point in my life.
Of course,
And I think if you've slept with a lot of people, or are going around and doing that, or hooking up with a lot of people, whatever it looks like, that's also okay. Not shaming yourself.
No.
But I think it's like being mindful now of like, whoa, it is an energy exchange. And do you really like want that? Do you want to be like connected with that person?
And all I mean by that, not trying to shame people, but
absolutely.
all I really mean by that is the lack of education. I don't think people truly understand how deep of an exchange it truly is, because we're not educated, you know?
Right.
It's just okay. Just make sure you're safe, right? Like wear a condom, be on birth birth control, which is a whole other topic, birth control, but, wear a condom, this or that, just have safe sex. And there's a lack of education on the spiritual side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I just think all of it. Yeah, it's like we need to start talking about it like young,
having those conversations. I mean,
like
age appropriate,
yeah.
but having those conversations young. Like in my family, we did not talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I know right now my mom is really wanting to teach the kids, her grandkids, because she babysits the grandkids, so teaching them about their bodies and like saying no if someone touches you in a way that you don't like having power over your own body, having autonomy over your body, and like teaching them like it's not okay to have someone touch you.
Yeah, well, I was just hanging out with my sister and a couple of other people the other day, a couple of women, and one of the women told me, and this is so common, she was out and there was a man, she was in a club, literally put his hand up her skirt, grabbed her bare ass, and like slimy, like slid away, and she was shocked. She turned around, and the guy had already it was crowded and was just like staring at her. Looking to connect with like-minded community on your journey of self-growth, self-love, and spiritual discovery? Join the Beehive, a supportive community hosted by Holly and I, designed to help you on your personal transformation and healing journey, and to help you tap into your innate wisdom. With live monthly Q&A sessions, exclusive content, and a like-minded community, the Beehive is the perfect space to grow and step into your most authentic self. For more information and to sign up, check the link in the show notes. I know that I've been touched inappropriately out, like a lot. This is so common, and it's not okay.
Well, that's why we also need the men really doing this work and releasing their sexual shame, because a lot of men that perpetuate these things have also been sexually assaulted, or have been like touched in some sort of way to make them feel like, oh, okay, it's like they're perpetuating their pain onto others.
And also media, like what they see in the media, thinking and it's porn. Normal, and porn. Yeah, and it's just that dark. It's the skewed. It's the dark. It's the that energy. And sex, like you said, is a beautiful thing.
It's like we really have to shift it, because it's meant to be such a beautiful thing. But right now, specifically, it just feels like it's very animalistic.
And you know what's coming to mind right now? I have chills. There's so much power in sex.
Yeah,
there's so much power in sex,
and the female orgasm as well.
And that's why it's so, because the world is so dark right now. I have like full body chills. It's almost like, I don't want to say that's why it's so dark right now, but think about how powerful sex is. That energy is so powerful, and it can do so much good. It has the potential to do so much good, but it's so dark right now, which is kind of keeping the good. I don't even know if I'm articulating it very well, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes. So I heard it's in the same vein. Like, so you know how I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about porn, but basically, you know how it's porn, like, stepmom and stepson, like that kind
or
of porn,
stepsister,
and and people are getting off to that,
or like teacher student,
so it's like these messed up, skewed scenarios,
or like cheating with the neighbor,
so the orgasm, you're at such a heightened state. It's such a, and like they say that you can manifest when you have an orgasm. They're feeding that darkness of stepson, stepmom, feeding that dark energy.
You just kind of gave an example to what I was trying to.
Yes, exactly. Because I heard that on Sahara Rose's podcast. She was explaining that, and I was like I was trying to sit with to see how I feel about it. But there is so much power in the orgasm, and we're feeding like such dark energy when you're watching porn. Like even like women being choked, or like, like all of this stuff that
and another thing that I want, like a lot of women like are turned on with like rape, or like, which there's a lot of shame surrounding that. It's like, why am I turned on? Like, women have these fantasies, and they're dark fantasies, and they get turned on by that. There's no shame, not blaming anyone. I think that's a skewed perception.
If something happened to you, it's like you taking your power back.
I have full body chills. It's a skewed perception, and that needs to be shifted, and that takes time, and it's a rewiring. So it's like, if you have those dark fantasies, please don't shame yourself. Don't shame yourself. It's not your fault.
It's actually you trying to take your power back.
Oh, I have chills.
It's you trying to take your power back and like witness it, because it happened, it feels like it's like taking your power back.
Yeah, I have chills. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But then it's feeding that energy.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like it's because it's like, I know for some people it's like hard to get off unless they're thinking of that dark fantasy or whatever. It's like, because your brain becomes accustomed, like, this is what gets me off. You know what I mean?
Yes. And like I've heard in the spiritual space, like they say like manifest when you are getting off.
Yep.
So
Sex magic.
So think about what you're orgasming to.
Yes.
And how powerful that is and what that energy is behind that, you know?
Just like porn comes to mind because there is a lot, like the example you just gave, there's so much darkness like in that space. And I'm not judging like, you know, people who are in that space at all, but there is a lot of underlying darkness there. And then people getting off to it, really feeding more of that energy.
Yeah. And there's so much porn addiction.
Yeah.
There's so much porn addiction and just constantly like, it's like this unhealthy, secretive relationship with porn and sex, and it just becomes really dark and can really affect your relationships, your marriages, whatever it may be. So I'm really trying to sit with the idea of porn, because I think there is ethical porn out there. I think there can be really ethical, where people are doing it from a place where they're being treated, they're being paid properly, they're doing it with respect. It's ethical. But I think what's out there right now is there's a lot of unethical porn that's feeding this dark, gross energy, skewing our perceptions.
Porn can actually be a really good teacher.
Yes.
Really good when it's done in integrity.
Yes. And like you can have like choking play and that kind of stuff if it's consensual.
Yes.
If you actually like, and that can be a beautiful thing, a playful thing, whatever it may be. But like the conversations aren't there.
Yeah. The communication's not there. People have too much shame to open up.
We have to have deep, you have to be really good at communicating to be able to have something like that.
Which is why building that bond with the person first is so important, so that you have the ability to communicate when you are having sex, because when you're having sex, you are so vulnerable, which is why people don't want to be communicative in those experiences. It's vulnerable.
Yeah, what's coming to mind is there was an example, a writer wrote into the Guys We Fucked podcast, and she had consented with a guy that she would want to do like choke play, like she would want to do that kind of stuff. But when they finally got together in person, he was doing it, but she was uncomfortable, but didn't know how to say no. So she's like, was I raped, or did I plan my own rape?
Oh, I have chills.
Because it got so skewed, because she like thought that's what she wanted, but the communication in person was not there. It's like, we have to like, if you're going to do stuff like that, it has to be such good communication.
I have so many chills. Yeah.
And like, and then it gets dark, and then it's this traumatizing experience.
And people get taken advantage of. And it's not even intentional. Like it's not always even intentional on either side. I'm not putting the blame on the man or the woman or whoever, you know, it's
because he thought she liked it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, there's just so many things. It's like, okay, we got to start just like talking about these things. And if you're into that kind of stuff, there's no shame, and understanding where it's stemming from.
It's getting curious too. It's like, you know, if you have these dark fantasies, if you do really enjoy porn or whatever it may be, it's getting curious. Okay, where is this truly stemming from, and really getting curious about that first.
Because oftentimes the mind will forget if you were molested or like raped at a very young age.
It protects you.
It's a protection mechanism. And like if you're there may be a deeper reasoning of why you're like so sexual. Like I know some women that I've spoken to have been hypersexual, and they later find out that they were molested or raped when they were younger, and their mind had suppressed that memory. So but it manifested as this hypersexuality, thinking that they just love sex and like love being in that energy, but it was really a protection. And so I think it's like really needing to get like so curious from a non-judgmental loving place, but start hearing other men's stories, so it can click, like something may like click and switch. Because I felt really called to talk so much about sexual shame and host these circles to really help people like release their sexual shame and just like reclaim their power.
And like what else is coming to mind too is, you know, when people are unaware of their wounds, often they seek sex for connection, and they really put so much weight on the sex, especially like in relationships. And I'm trying to figure out how to articulate exactly kind of what's coming to mind, but it's or not even in relationships, that's how they feel loved, that's how they feel attention, especially like women wanting that like male attention, seeking that love when they're unaware of their wounds, and just, and this is not me shaming, like, like we talked about before, but it's, just having sex with whoever, because we're so deeply just craving that intimate connection.
We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there.
And without understanding their wounds, without understanding where it's coming from, just having sex with whoever, because all they're really craving is that connection, but they're not really understanding the implications.
Because you can feel so connected with someone in that moment, but then after that, you can feel
empty,
worse than you did before, because you thought it was something else.
It was it was all physical.
Yes. Yeah. And I think something I want to talk about is how, a lot of the times we're seeing that it's men perpetuating this, like a lot of men that are taking advantage of women. And I've really come to have also so much compassion for men, because typically if a man is perpetuating that pain, something has happened to them. They have either been raped or molested, and maybe they aren't even aware of it, or they've been abused in some sort of capacity, and they are perpetuating their own pain. So it's like working together here to like not shame, not blame, but that's like come together and speak about these things and release our shame, and like support one another in our healing, to like really it's such a dense energy. It's such a dense energy, and it's so prevalent, especially pedophilia energy.
And it could be, it's hard. These are hard conversations. It's hard to open up, but I'm telling you, it's uncomfortable. I'm telling you from personal experience, it is so liberating. Though it is really liberating once you do start opening up. It's a part of the healing. We talked about this in one of our previous episodes. Healing really happens in community, and being witnessed and being seen and being understood. And if you're keeping it a secret, you're not giving yourself that opportunity to be seen, to be healed, I guess, in that way.
Right. I want to just say this quote that I found. So going along this line, it says, disconnection perpetuates worldwide trauma. We heal by reconnecting. So it's like coming together in community, reconnecting, sharing our shame, our painful experiences, to then see, oh, I'm not alone.
And not comparing either.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not comparing, but it's like,
that just like came to mind too. Like not comparing and knowing that regardless, because, some people might experience big T trauma, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I've come, cause I talk with a lot of my work revolves around, healing and like supporting people processing their inner child wounds, inner teenage wounds. And the biggest thing that I've come to understand is pain is pain. Yeah. We must not compare pain, because that's where it gets really dangerous. Yeah. Maybe someone was raped. Maybe you just had you had your first pain, like you had sex and it wasn't that great, but that traumatized you. Yeah. You can't compare the two.
Because I think this is where what I meant to say by don't compare is like, you might feel like, oh, well, I was never raped. Like I was never whatever. It's like, it doesn't matter. Maybe what happened to you, maybe you
were slapped on the butt.
Maybe you were slapped on the butt, Maybe you are lucky enough never to have experienced any of these things firsthand, but maybe down the line something was passed down to you.
Or maybe sex was just never talked about. So it's like you almost feel asexual.
Yes.
It's like there's so many different spectrums, and it's like we must not compare. It's like your experience is your experience, and it's valid and deserves to be seen and heard.
Period.
Yes. Something else that's really coming to mind is abortion, because there is so much shame around abortion. And I was on a run and I saw a billboard around, there's so many billboards around abortion, and I'm not here to like, you know, if you're pro-life, if you, whatever it may be, regardless, it's shame.
It's
shame. Even if you had an abortion and you feel good about it, shame on every corner of the way, shaming you. And then that takes you further away from, making you feel like, oh, I can't have sex.
Yeah. And do you know what? I want to talk about that from someone who's a medium, somebody who connects with the spirit world. What I've really learned when it comes, and I'm going to be completely open and transparent when it comes to my opinion on abortion with you guys. I used to be pro-life, completely against abortion. And through my healing journey and through just my spiritual growth and evolution, what I've really come to realize is soul babies. And this, I just want to do a disclaimer. This is also me not saying like, yeah, just go get just go have sex and not think about it and just go get abortions. That's not what I'm like saying either. But from what I've learned is when a soul baby decides to come, regardless, like the soul baby always knows what's going to happen. It always knows what's going to happen. And time is not linear the way we are experiencing it, the way it makes sense in this human, you know, reality. So that soul that's wanting to come through, if, you know, the mom decides to have an abortion, the soul knew exactly what it was signing up for.
The soul also chose.
The soul chose what it was signing up for. And if the soul wants to live a human experience, time is not linear. It will come through when the soul is supposed to come through. Sometimes these situations have to happen for the mom, for the woman, for her evolution, whatever lesson it is that whatever experience it is that she needs to move through, if that makes sense. So that's kind of, I had that epiphany, that aha moment through, you know, my journey. And again, this is not me saying like, go have unprotected sex with whoever you want, whenever you want, and not being responsible with it. You know, I want to make that clear. However, it's, you know, people say, oh, you're killing, you know, and I know we could get like really political and whatnot, but I just feel like you said, the shame.
Yeah. And I want to talk about too with that. So we know now too, because I grew up Catholic, I was very pro-life as well. And now my perception has totally shifted to like, whatever the woman wants to do, she gets to do. You do what is best for you. No one should be telling you what is best for you, especially the government. Women get to decide what they do with their body, period. No judgment. Let you be you. And what I've really understood on my spiritual journey too is like, we are souls. We are not our bodies.
We are not our bodies.
So those souls go right back up to unconditional love. They go right back up to unconditional love. They are so happy. They are so protected. They are so loved. So if you have any shame around if you've had an abortion and you're listening, it's like that soul went right back up, and they
were happy. They were happy to be that soul for you, for you to experience that. Not saying that was easy for you to experience, you know, not saying that was a pleasant experience, but that soul was happy to do that, and is still with you. That's your spirit baby, and they're supporting you regardless.
Oh, and they were trying to teach you something. What was that experience trying to teach you? Maybe it was you choosing yourself. Maybe it was you showing up for yourself. Maybe it was you needing to really look at the life that you've created for yourself that wouldn't have been possible if you had that child at that time. And they'll come back to you in the right divine timing. And also something that I was told, and it like really made sense to me. It's what you were saying. It's like a kind of like, I don't know about soul contracts, like really that kind of verbiage, but it's like the mom chooses, but also the soul consents as well.
Yes, yeah,
like they know.
It's
like they go right back up to love. And it's so interesting because my mom got a reading done by a psychic, Thomas Winlow. I love him so much. I talk about how he really changed my life, and he's the one who opened my mom's eyes. He's like, you know those babies You know, with abortion, those babies go right back up to love. They go right back up to unconditional love, to God, to source, to, you know, it's like they are just fine.
Yeah, because
you know?
because often it is experiences like that causes a person to reflect that will then change their life.
Right. Yeah.
And that soul baby is so happy and more than willing to be that tower moment for you so that your life can change in a positive way.
Yes. You know? Yeah. I just really I just felt called to talk about that because, again, Alex Cooper, I like have so much respect for her. She just did one of her latest podcast episodes about, you know, there's abortion bans. I'm from the US, and there's, you know, each state is getting to decide, you know, having these abortion bans, and these women are having to travel. Like, oh my gosh, it's just, she goes to an abortion clinic, and the amount of protesters outside that are shaming these women at every corner, it's about shame, shame, shame. And even if you do, you come out of that clinic, shame, 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 shame on, it's like women needing to like internalize that shame, even if they made that decision and that's what you needed to do for you. And that was the best thing that you could have done. Shame on you.
Yeah.
And like, even if you have, like, I feel like support systems are so necessary in that time too, to not take that on. But like, if you're vulnerable, like that can really skew with you and like make you disconnect from sex and your body even further.
More. Yeah.
You know, and that's how women are staying stuck.
Yeah.
It's like this shame.
Yeah.
And men, you know, it's, we got to work together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that like women too, like the man can feel a lot of shame too. If he impregnates a woman and she chooses to have an abortion, he also holds on to that shame.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then maybe he will not be able to show up like
for his next partner.
Yes. Because that shame.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's
erectile dysfunction is even coming to mind. Like that's coming to mind. Like sometimes men have erectile dysfunction for multiple reasons, but sometimes it's often because of shame, whether it's tied to specifically abortion or not. But there's shame, and because of that shame, it's their body not allowing them to have sex.
And just so much internalization, so much shame, so many secrets. It's just like there's so much out there.
Yeah.
There's so much out there, and like it's really, we need to rewrite that story and help liberate ourselves. It's like we got to rewrite the story, because sex is a beautiful thing, but it does feel like so animalistic and like
like primal,
and
physical, like it's so much more than just a physical thing.
It's like this,
it's sacred. Sex is sacred.
And the female pleasure and female orgasm is sacred.
It's sacred. And like, that's why religion is on to something when they say like, wait for marriage to have sex, even though like, I don't personally agree with that specifically. But it's like, they are on to something in a way, you know, because it is sacred.
And it's like with anything, like all these things, there's truth to religion. There's truth to spirituality. There's truth to porn. There's truth to, it's like, how can we meet in the middle and get back to the truth, the capital T truth of it all, you know, and that's going to look different for everyone. But
and we need to have, in order to get there, we need to have conversations, we need to listen, we need to have compassion, and we need to be honest.
Yes. Non-judgment.
With no judgment.
People just really want to be seen and heard. And if you're struggling and like loved. You have secrets, like know that you're not alone. You are not alone. You have experienced, I'm sure thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of other people have experienced too. You're not alone. So this is us just opening the door.
Our first conversation of many.
About
sex.
And we knew, like, I was like, I felt uncomfortable, like, bringing this up. Like, it feels like uncomfortable to talk about, even like, you know, stuff that I've done that I haven't shared, you know, with my parents, and my mom listens, and, you know, having conversations around that. But it's like, freedom. Let's have these conversations. Let's do this together. Let's take this taboo topic and shift it into something like beautiful.
It's like, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. That song, like every time Holly brings up like we need to have a conversation about sex, that song comes in. But that song is like light. It's like light. You know?
And that's what I'm seeing, like a wave, because it's like diving into the dark, coming back up in the light, going into the dark, diving back into, we got to have like the duality. It's like talking about these things and coming back, you know, it's like finding that right.
It's like Two of Pentacles keeps coming to my mind's eye, which is all about like balance.
Yeah, because there's a light side and there's a dark side
to everything,
and we gotta like
the yin and the yang,
bring the dark to light.
Like the card, the oracle card we pulled this morning,
yeah.
the yin and the yang
we
card.
did get that one this morning.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So yeah, we want to have more of these. And something is like, if you have any questions around sex, or like what to do in your relationship, or if you're not experiencing pleasure and don't know how to start these conversations in your relationship, or you have a secret that you want to get off your chest, like
we want to talk about it.
Yeah, like email us. We'll have our email in the show notes below. Like we want to start really like supporting you guys having these kind of conversations.
Yeah, my battery's about to die, but but maybe we should wrap it up there.
Yeah.
So send us an email. My battery's about to die. So before it does, we love you.
Yes. Thank you for listening and having an open mind too.
Yes.
If you felt uncomfortable, that's okay.
That's okay.
Get curious too.
Yeah.
About that, because there may be a message in there for you.
Yeah. I love you guys.
Love you guys. Thank you.
See you next Wednesday.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude for joining us on this journey. Your support does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this episode and find value in our conversations, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also allows us to reach more people who can benefit from our community of healing and support. Every review, every rating makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of the Multiple Truths podcast family. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. Keep speaking your truth and spreading your light. We love you, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.